Thanks for the introduction. I'm the research manager at the Digital R&D Fund for the Arts, and it's a real pleasure to be here today with such a enthusiastic and committed group of museum professionals from all over England. My role at the fund gives me the opportunity to work with currently 36 individual R&D projects involving arts and cultural organisations, technology providers and research organisations. We're about to announce at the end of the month another sort of 15 to 20 projects, so that'll bring the number of projects up to about 50 to 60. So it's almost sort of overwhelming array of activity going on, some of which I hope to share with you today. Another part of my role is to manage a 3-year sort of tracking study of how arts and cultural organisations in England use technology, and I'm going to share some of the findings of that today, which hopefully will provide a bit of context for some of the great discussions that are going to happen throughout the rest of the day. I'll also have a sort of 5 minutes hopefully for questions if I don't get too carried away. So if there's anything that comes up that you want to know more about, I'm very happy to take questions, or you can follow up with me afterwards. Very happy to have a chat anytime. So I decided to call my presentation Digital Kaleidoscope. You'll have to bear with me on the lame metaphor. But basically, I think when you sort of look around the arts and cultural sector, you see a sort of almost overwhelming array of digital activity, experimentation happening by individuals in their organisations, and it's quite sort of stunning to behold. It's almost sort of bewildering to try and make sense of it all. So today I wanted to have a closer look at some of the patterns that our research is showing in digital activity, and also to try and shine a light on some of the resources that we're working on to try and help people, help ourselves make sense of it and help others to work out what it all means and what to do as an individual working in an institution. So hopefully by the end I will have covered 3 main things. One is sort of the patterns that are happening. 2 is hopefully to bring a bit of colour to that with some of the projects that we funded. And thirdly, to highlight some of the resources that we're making available. So I don't need to tell you about digital change in the world. We all know the changes that are happening. I won't go into that today. It's quite sort of startling, the pace of change that's happening, and there's someone reminded me the other day that we called our website native based on the idea that there are of digital natives, that there's people who have grown up in a world, people who are joining the workforce in fact today have grown up in a world with not knowing a world without the internet. They've always had access to 24/7 connectivity and digital content available at the click of the button. And we called our website native based on the idea that one day the arts and cultural sector will be digitally native, and how on earth are we going to sort of prepare for that day? We think that to work towards that means collaborating with each other and with different disciplines. We think a culture of sort of experimentation, testing ideas, rigorously collecting data about what works and what doesn't, and then sharing what we learn at forums like this one, so that we can hopefully try and move forward and not make the same mistakes again. So that's why the program that I work for is funding different projects and collecting evidence about what works and what doesn't, in the hope that we can start to sort of build a shared understanding about where the opportunities might lie or what lies ahead. We've also commissioned, as I mentioned, a 3-year study to help us make sense of the changes, and we're working with MTM London. It started last year, it was the first year, and it's going to run for 3 years, tracking how arts and cultural institutions use technology, what barriers they face, where we're seeing impacts from that work, and we're also trying to establish what we can learn and what impact the program's having as well. As I mentioned, last year was the first year. There's a report available online if you want to get into straight into the deep end of that. But today I'm just going to share a few key things which struck me when I was sort of preparing for today regarding the sort of museum and gallery sector in general. And some of them might confirm what you think what we're all seeing and what you already know. Others, I think, are quite surprising. We were sort of surprised by some of the results, and they have sparked some conversations already around the launch of the research about what might be behind the numbers and which parts of the sector might be, experiencing different impacts and what we might do next. Overall, we found that almost everyone regards digital technology as either important or essential to at least some aspect of their work. That's no real surprise. But as the saying goes, the future might be here, but it's just not evenly distributed. So when we start to look across different functions of an arts and cultural organisation, we can see there's some significant differences. This chart shows in the dark green the proportion that think digital technology is essential in that area, and the light green shows that they think it's important. So as you can see, 3/4 of arts organisations now see digital technology as essential to marketing, but that decreases across different functions of the arts organisation, right down to less than 1 in 5 who see digital technology as important to revenue streams. So that makes us try and work out whether there's opportunities to use technology more effectively and have an impact. The changes aren't only across organisational functions, but they're across different types of organisations. So we actually see that across this spectrum, museums as a group regard digital technology as less important to all of their functions. Galleries, on the other hand, see digital technology as more important to all of their functions. So that could be for a range of reasons. We might go into that today, but I'd be really interested in your thoughts on that as well. When we start to look at specific activities, we can kind of get a flavour of what's going on. Museums, in the results, we had about 180 or so museums respond, and when we look at them as a group, they're actually more likely than, say, performing arts organisations to be doing things like creating digital experiences, digital artworks, providing educational content online, and creating digital interactive experiences in the education context. On the other hand, they're less likely to be doing things like email marketing, selling tickets online, publishing content on their website or on free platforms, accepting online donations, paid search or online display, using social listening tools and cloud computing. So what strikes me when I look at this is that there is a higher propensity to be using digital technology for creation and mediation, whereas there's a lower propensity to use technology in things like sales-related functions and in operations. I want to just focus a little bit on what we call sort of born digital works, which is works that are created specifically for digital platforms or with digital technology in mind. And we know that in the results, almost 60% of museums and galleries right across the country are creating born digital works, and this is as of 2013. I think that's absolutely incredible. That's obviously higher than all other types of arts and cultural organisations in our sample, and I think it's a pretty impressive level of activity from which to be building from. But when we start to look at impact, we see a really interesting picture. This graph shows in the dark green the proportion of organisations who are seeing a major impact on their core mission. So they're using digital technology and it's having a major impact on their ability to fulfil their core mission. In the light green, it's the proportion who are seeing major impacts on their overall profitability. As you can see, very few organisations are seeing major impacts on their profitability in general, but the museum sector is not yet experiencing as major impacts on the mission or profitability as some other types of arts and cultural organisations. And again, we're wondering why that is, whether there's a link between the types of activities that are happening and the impacts that are being experienced. Naturally, the picture's changing incredibly quickly, and we're about to go into data collection for the second year of the study, so we'll be launching the questionnaire in July, and I'd really encourage you to participate. The more organisations that share their own experience, the richer data we all have to try and make sense of what's happening. But in the first year, we asked organisations which activities they started doing for the first time in the last 12 months. And I've just shown on screen the top 3 fastest growing digital activities in arts and cultural organisations. Interestingly enough, museums have started blogging, selling event tickets and creating digital experiences quite rapidly in the last 12 months, whereas for galleries, live streaming and creating born digital works. So what are the barriers that we're facing as a sector? Got this very overcluttered chart here, that's terrible. But I'm going to just drill down into a couple of things. Naturally, you wouldn't be surprised to hear that a lack of time and money are quite common barriers that we all face in terms of achieving our digital aspirations. But a couple of things also stood out to me when I looked more closely at the data. We found that half of all museums and galleries say they have slow or limited IT, and half of all museums say they also lack control over their own IT. And 1 in 5 museums say that digital technology is not valued in the organisation. So we start to see quite a range in terms of how digital technology is resourced within organisations and how it's distributed across different departments and within senior management. Skills gaps is another thing we explored in the study. Again, a disgusting chart, I apologise. But again, I'll just drill down on a couple of things. 50% of galleries say they lack database management or CRM skills, and 38% of museums say they lack partnership management and commissioning skills. So it just gives you a sense of what some organisations in our sector and the challenges that they're facing, and how we might look to work together to move forward and make the most of the opportunities looking ahead. So I'm going to switch from talking about numbers and talk to about some of the projects that we're working with, which hopefully will be you'll find interesting. But if you would like to know more about the results of the study, you can access the report online, or we also make available a portal, so organisations who respond to the survey get access to a portal that we've built so that people can look at how and you can sort of fiddle with data to see how they compare with different organisations in different art forms or of different sizes and shapes. So that kind of helps to make the results more real, because as you can imagine, each organisation is its own individual context, and different opportunities are relevant. So as I mentioned, this is our first 24 funded projects, and we've got another 12 now up and running. And I just wanted to share a couple of examples from our own portfolio and also from some international case studies that we're working on. Tanta is an app that was built by the National Galleries of Scotland last year, and there's a case study of it on our website. I think it's really interesting because the app that they built is fantastic. We've had people flying around the gallery playing with it, but one of the things that happened during the course of the project was that they actually went through a process to revise their IT policies, because previously to building the app, there was no Wi-Fi in the galleries, and people couldn't, they had very limited ability to use their mobile phones in different parts of the gallery. So I think one of the most significant things to happen during the project was actually revision of that policy to encourage people to use their mobile phones, and that's led to all kinds of opportunities. Obviously the app is just one manifestation of that activity. Imperial War Museums, I'm sure many of you are familiar with these projects, but Imperial War Museums has been working for the past year with History Pin and Edinburgh University to try and crowdsource details from their World War I art collection. And they've had events all around the country and been attracting comments online to try and build an understanding of some of the things like uniforms, equipment, the people and places that are in the artworks, and really enhance the curatorial understanding and interpretation of the works. They've combined the knowledge they previously had with the crowdsourced content and created a Google Cultural Institute exhibition to commemorate the centenary, which you can all have a look at. Fitzwilliam Museum. Is David here? I've snuck this from one of your colleagues' slides that I saw yesterday, but many of you would know of the Culture Funder app, which David and his team are working on in Cambridge to try and help visitors to Cambridge develop their own cultural tours and experience and find different objects and visit institutions they might not otherwise know about. And they also had some really interesting findings from user groups where they actually had to sort of change many of the assumptions that they'd made about how people want to engage with the app, initially thinking that it would be used for sort of serendipitous discovery. And in fact, they found that people wanted to use it to pre-plan, so they'd be at home on their desktop, in fact, researching and looking at what they might do in Cambridge. And so that's led to some quite significant changes in the platforms that they're using and how they're developing it. Our culture label are a bunch of brave young lads in London who have built a successful business around aggregating products from museum shops and galleries across England, and they're now sort of developing that into sort of cultural experiences where they're trying to compete with sort of red balloon days and more of those sort of premium gift type options that you can buy and attract a sort of higher paying visitor to some cultural institutions. They're working with the RA and Whitechapel Gallery and Dulwich Picture Gallery to try and develop new opportunities to access a different part of the market. And they're having real challenges, and they're using a lot of complicated research to try and work out if they're actually going to cannibalise their own audiences by offering these sorts of opportunities. Nottingham Castle, is Adrian here? You might have seen them yesterday. They're using an augmented reality to try and as a sort of interpretive tool to try and bring to life the 1831 riots in Nottingham, to really enhance the visitor experience and help people navigate through the castle. Just show it's absolutely incredible the amount of work going into developing the technology and testing it with audiences. We're also looking internationally to see what's happening outside our borders, and there's a couple of examples I'll flick past on screen, but we're actually launching them today on our website, so you can have a look at your leisure later. Rubens House in Antwerp are using Bluetooth technology to push content to people in the gallery. In Romania, they've built a digital museum. Has anyone heard about this project? It's an amazing idea. They've obviously in quite a remote location in Romania where there's limited opportunities to sort of attract touring collections, but they've decided to build a completely digital museum where people will be able to experience objects in a completely digital environment. So they're actually projecting objects from museums and galleries around the world into a physical space here, but it'll be a completely digital experience, which just blows my mind. And New Ink, I'm sure many of you will be familiar with this, the new museum in New York is repurposing part of their building as a sort of lab for startups and creative entrepreneurs, so they can become a sort of hotspot for innovation in the sector. All this and probably expressed in a much more elegant way is on our website Native, which I mentioned before, which I hope, if you haven't already checked out, you'll have a look today. My colleague Rob has been working very hard to redesign it, and it launches today, so he'll be enjoying the beer tonight, I'm sure, but it looks great, so I hope you can have a look. Also working on a magazine. It's a sort of interesting experiment because we often use digital channels to talk about digital ideas, and we're experimenting with actually a print publication in order to maybe come at the idea in a different way and maybe communicate with people who like to sort of, as I do, read a physical document instead of online. It's out in July, so I hope you catch a copy. So just wrapping up, I hope I've given you a little snapshot of some of the patterns that our research is showing that's happening across the sector. Some of those will be familiar to you, others might be surprising and it might not tally with your experience, but it's what we've heard from others. I've hopefully brought a bit of colour to that with some of the projects, and I hope you know where to look for more information about those. And we're working hard at the fund to try and study what's going on all of our projects and try and build an understanding of what's working and what's not, what kind of tools can be used, and how can we organise ourselves to make the most of the opportunities. Happy to take questions if anyone has any.